Welcome to Liberty Free to Be, the podcast that celebrates women finding their voice, their confidence, and their own version of freedom. I'm your host, Rachel Peru, speaker, model, storyteller, and a champion of showing up as your most unapologetic self. Each episode, I sit down with incredible women who share the real, powerful, sometimes messy stories that shaped who we are today. So settle in. This is your reminder that you are free to grow, free to change, and free to be fully, fabulously you. Welcome back to another episode of Liberty Free to Be. And this is the 11th episode. I can't believe how quickly this 7th series has gone. The 11th episode, and I love talking to all the guests, and I found them so inspiring, and they share so much knowledge and wisdom with us all. So I hope you are getting as much from the conversations as I have. And apologies for not being more consistent this last few months. Grief has been a roller coaster to navigate, and I'm sure lots of you can relate to that. And I am going gently with myself, and I am taking the time that I need to get through this. And I'm slowly getting my mojo back, I'm happy to report. And part of that is having these conversations, because I really do gain so much from talking to all these different women. And today's guest is no exception. I first met Emma Neville at a Gen M campaign launch that we were both involved in. And what I love about Emma is she is sharing her lived experiences of going through the menopause, early menopause at 40 after being diagnosed with POI, which is premature ovarian insufficiency at 40. So she could not have seen this coming. And so she decided that she would really empower herself and find out as much as she can about the menopause, which we all know can often be a tricky place to navigate. So she then went on to become a menopause specialist, has done all the training, has got all that knowledge, and she created This Is Me, which is such a supportive community, not only sharing valuable information, but a support network for women that might need it. So we have got a lot to talk about. So grab a coffee and enjoy. Thank you so much for joining me, Emma. It's an absolute I'm just so delighted to be talking to you, because we've been waiting to do this for a long time. So thank you for being so patient.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
We have got a lot to talk about. And although I don't think we've ever properly met in person, I've been following you on your socials and all the work that you're doing. And you've been on quite a journey yourself. So can we start at the beginning? How did you get into this whole menopause coaching arena? Because you're coming at this from your own personal experience, aren't you?
I am, yes. It's been a journey indeed. I think, yeah, for me, it was, for those that don't know me, I had early menopause. I was diagnosed with POI, premature ovarian insufficiency, coming up to being 40. And I was in huge shock. I was in denial due to my age. I didn't have menopause on my horizon. I just thought this midlife, UK average 51. I didn't know that was the average at the time. Till educating myself, but it was very much kind of, what does that mean for me now? Having this, it was really paramount having two girls that I found out what their future looked like. Um, you know, I was kind of like, will they follow the path of me? I didn't know anything about premature ovarian insufficiency, let alone menopause. So it was something that I really found that for my future health and for my girls, it was really important that I educated myself. I learnt about it and how to kind of navigate this next few years, for myself. So it was a lot of denial. I do have to admit, it was some time to get my head round. Um, and I think it's that processing of kind of, there was some grieving going on there because I felt like my body clock had slowed down. There was this aging process that I had to get my head round. So it did bring up quite a bit of grief at the start. I think it was more a lot of physical aspects of symptoms. I think a lot of mental capacity was kind of at its full, yeah, and there was a lot to digest, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine I was 46, 47 when I first started thinking, actually, something's not quite right here. So I can't imagine doing that almost a decade earlier. And you're right,
Yeah.
it's that grief I found that I really struggled with, even though I didn't want to have any more children, even that whole grieving process of, well, that I can't do that anymore, even if I wanted to, was taken away from me. And it was a really
Yeah.
rocky few months to get my head around that. What sort of things were you kind of supported right at the beginning? Because there's lots more information out there now, but at the beginning there wasn't as much. So how supportive did you find the whole service?
Yeah, I feel like I kind of was in this process of all these symptoms were going on, and it was my family that really said, "I think you need to speak to somebody, medical," you know. This was at the point of lockdown, so life had really changed. So when I do look back, I give myself a lot of praise now to think, "Wow, how did I even get through that?" Because we was all in this new life transition of not knowing what the next day meant. So it was kind of I did lean into that, and I do have a good relationship with my doctor, and we ran some bloods and they came back normal. And the more I've educated and I've done my coaching and I realize that I can go for bloods today at 12, I can go tomorrow at 12, and they can be really different when we're in this hormone, transition of it dipping off. So I just thought, well, they came back normal, and I thought, well, I feel fine, bloody this isn't what I usually feel like. I class myself as quite a calming person. I was off the scale in kind of my emotions. I was 0 to 10 in minutes with the girls. I didn't know myself sometimes. I did shock myself in some of my behaviours. So it was something that I lent into my private healthcare, and I was waiting for some well woman checks anyway on something, and I just thought, "I'm gonna go down this route," and then from that process, having been told I needed a hysteroscopy, and then that day when that kind of come back and sitting with a gynecologist to tell me this diagnosis was it all felt like, wow, it happened quick, but it was a huge process from kind of nowhere, not knowing anything to, gosh, I'm in this life now and this is where I'm at. So I feel like the process was actually quite quick for me, which I'm very grateful hearing other people's journeys, but the processing felt very quite drawn out for me. And then it was kind of this, feeling of for somebody who's had a clean bill of health for all their life, never been on any prescriptions or anything like that, touch wood. And I felt like having to this extra layer, even though it was like, my HRT got sent to me. I looked at it for about 8 weeks and I just couldn't contemplate starting it, and it was a friend that actually said to me, "What's the worst that can happen? Please try it," and I thought, "She's right." That I wasn't getting any better. I'd been to see a herbalist and I'd had a lovely mixture potion, as I called it, made with all amazing, ashwagandha, lion's tail, lion's mane, all these other amazing sounding things, but it just wasn't getting anything to where I needed to be with my kind of estrogen pulling it back. So I thought, "I need to try this," and I really did think, like you say, the benefits kind of outweighing the risks, and it was just go for it and see, and I do have to say within definitely 6 weeks, I was kind of feeling parts of myself. By the 12 weeks, I felt back in the room on a lot of the feelings and things had shifted and symptoms had, dissipated, yeah.
It's quite scary, isn't it, when you realise, because I'm on HRT as well, and once I had got past that kind of 12, 14 weeks when I started to feel more like myself, it makes you realise how unlike yourself you were. Once you
Yes.
come back out the other side of it, it's like, "God, what happened to me?" It is like waking up in somebody else's body, isn't it?
It really is, and it's quite like, gosh, and I like, look now, I'm on the patches now, and I look at this little patch, and like Tuesday, Saturday is patch day for me, and I literally bless my patch because I think, "Thank you so much." I touch it and I say, "Bless my patch, please give me strength." And it does, and I just think, but I'm not sat here saying, HRT is for everybody. As we know, I'm advocated, for myself, a 40-plus-year-old woman. That's why I got into this space because I thought there must be more of me out there who are experiencing this. Um, I think it's doing your own research, which is really important, and getting to know if it was something that you would like to consider and gaining that understanding and knowledge around it, before this transition does come along and kind of, takes you by surprise. Yeah.
Because knowledge is power, and you really did go deep, and you really did. You did the training, you became an expert menopause coach. What drove you to that extent of wanting to find out more? Because you could have stopped once you'd kind of sorted yourself out. You could have gone, "Okay, right, I've cracked it now. I'm all right."
Yeah, I think really for me, it was something that I love doing courses. I mean, the amount of courses I've done over my master what's it called? Jack of I forgot the saying, but yeah, master of all, jack of
Yes,
none, black in the trades, and I'm like, done everything from flower arranging to you name it. And it
me
was
too.
something that I thought, "Oh," and I just fell across going on, like, Instagram. I started to follow some really interesting doctors, and then it was just, like you say, algorithms, I don't know, but I started to look up menopause a lot. And then, I saw this coaching certificate, and I thought, "I can do that." And we were still just coming out of lockdown, and it was still online. I qualified in 2022, so it was kind of like that phase of everything still. And I remember reaching out to the coach at the time and saying, "How many's on this course?" And I felt the safety because I was at home and I was going to be okay. Because I felt still quite emotional, and I thought, "I'm going to cry through this. I know I am." But that was my biggest kind of like I was proud of myself, but it was like the biggest, I think, strength that I gained was like meeting like-minded women, and it was like 14 of us on this cohort, and I felt like this sisterhood. And every Thursday we'd have, a lesson drop, and the following week we'd go through it, and it would just be like I was asking them as many questions that I was intrigued about, and some are further on the journey, and I was just like I become fascinated with the actual term menopause. I think I went, well, I think I am a bit menopause mad, as in like, I just then started buying so many books, and it was like, gosh, this is like this is a huge topic. It can't just be covered in, a few hours. I really need to understand me, yes, and what's gonna happen, yeah,
So what have you kind of, if you look back now, all the information that you've kind of taken in, what piece
yes.
of that would you really wish you'd know right at the beginning?
I think I always say now, if I could change any part of it, like guidelines and things like that, I would get rid of this 51. Like, if there could be any improvement, I'd love to, because I know we need statistics, but it's so generalize when you look into kind of statistics and putting people into buckets or whatever you want to call it. But it's, you know, the way that these studies are done. So I would love to remove that, because I think it then reaches out to the person that's kind of like, you know, at that late 30s where we are going on this decline of hormones, it gets you to think about it a lot more and prepare yourself. So that would be something that I definitely would feel like a change. Going back to your question, just ask me again what was the start, 'cause I do digress.
No, no, it's great. But I was just thinking, what piece of that knowledge do you really wish you'd known right at the beginning of all this?
I think that really when you're in it, you feel like every day, nothing's the same, nothing's linear in life, and it really is forever changing. And even now, I think it's kind of like riding this storm, and I kind of call it like I'm still tweaking my journey, even though everything's balanced at the minute and working really nice. And we kind of say with my menopause specialist, we've got this ingredients all in the mixture, and the mixture's really good at the minute. But that doesn't mean in a few months something might dip off or something might be missing. So I call it still tweaking my journey. And I think that once I got my head around that, from month to month, I could appreciate that not every day, not everything was gonna feel the same, and I think that takes some getting used to, and appreciating that hormones are absolutely so impactful to us get to learn about them and understand them and where they are and what they're doing in our bodies. It took me back to kind of school days learning about the endocrine system and things, and I always say to people, "If you wanna learn any kind of thing, get into the endocrine system and just find out." It's fascinating of what is going on within, our bodies. I think there's so much that I can see that's changed, and I know that if I prepared myself, my journey would have been definitely I wouldn't have waited as long, it would be definitely different knowing what I know now, yes.
So many people will be listening to that thinking, yeah, that's the same as me. I wish I'd known sooner what was going on. And I
Yes,
wish I'd been more connected to my body
absolutely.
earlier on and really listened to it. But there are
Yeah,
still, and even though we've made some amazing progress in the whole kind of service delivery that we get, there are still,
yeah,
we both know there's still women out there that are struggling to be heard, that are struggling to
yes.
get the right kind of help that they need. What could you recommend for them to start with when they are feeling in this space like, what do I do?
Yeah, I think really I would always say, for me as well, my body was giving me signs. Was I taking note? My periods had stopped, this 12 months time I put it down to stress. That is not normal looking back. It was just this new life phase. I wasn't looking after myself. I wasn't putting myself first. And I always say that isn't selfish anymore. I realize it's actually essential in this stage, um, for yourself, and everybody else will get the best out of you if you look after yourself. So I think it's that tune into you. I always say when your body's hungry, it kind of gives us that grumble and we feed it. But really, there's so many cues that it gives us. Are we really stopping and taking note? And probably because we're so busy now in life, and there's so many outputs that are going on, within a day, that are we really stopping? And I think it's track, track, track is always something that I say. Get to understand. I've met women who don't even know when the last cycle was. I probably was that person at
Yeah.
times through this. But get to know now. pain and discomfort and things like that during a period, it isn't normal. It's not just a period. There's so much more to what's going on. And I think lean into the people around you and reach out. And it really is a private, it's a personal thing. So sometimes if you're somebody who is quite reserved and doesn't want to share, find that person that you feel safe with, to lean into them and just kind of say, have you noticed any changes around me, or do you think I've been different? Because sometimes we drive ourselves mad and, we can get in our own heads. So I would say that really you are not alone. You're really not. And there is so many people and support networks and different things for all women's health in general. Yeah, that signposting and want to help and want to be there as this community. Find your kind of tribe, find your people, and really lean into them. And I think just sharing, it feels so much better, yeah, than holding it in.
And that's
Yeah.
why that's what's led you to create This Is Me and the community that you've built around
Yes.
there, isn't it? Because what I found is it's actually sometimes easier to talk to a stranger about what's going on with you than it is to talk to your closest friend because we just don't want to talk about it. Whereas you can imagine the women in your support group in This Is Me community really just lean on each other. Is that what you found?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that gives me the biggest joy, just reading people on the comments, communicating with each other and giving hope I've felt like that. And it's just like it's so powerful. Um, and that's what I feel like. I'm so proud of kind of when you look, like say, started it with not really just kind of advocating the 40-plus-year-old woman who wanted to just tell my story and hopefully somebody could relate and think, "Gosh, that's how I feel." To now to think that, I feel like I've got to know them. I feel like with some of my friends, I see the same people commenting and it's heartwarming and it's like, "Oh my gosh," and they're sharing themselves with you, which is so powerful. I am really proud of kind of like you say, those connections, and I'm learning as much as them at times as well. So it's a twofold thing, and it's really important to have those networks within,
Yeah.
I think, anything that you're going through, in life, but particularly, you know, when you are feeling at your lowest and you've lost parts of yourself and you don't know who you are anymore, it's like, gosh, I wanna feel seen, heard, and validated, and that is really, really important. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And did you know what impact did it have on your confidence when you were going through all this? I can imagine it knocked your confidence.
did. It really did, and I think it was kind of like that feeling of like none of my friends really were at that phase of the stage. So I lent into friends. I'm very grateful. I had friends in the 50+ years who was, on that journey. And I lent into them a lot, but I still felt kind of, I suppose, partly alone. And it was something that was, yeah, I think my confidence just was not. I felt I lost parts of me. I didn't know who I was some days, and I was shocked at the things I was presenting. And it was kind of like, gosh, like, how do I get there? But I really feel like I give myself that time, and I've never felt back as I look back now, like as in tune with myself now. And I don't want to put this kind of it was dark days and negative vibes at the start, but I do think now it was meant to be, and I do have to kind of feel it like this happened for a reason. And it was kind of this was mapped out in my journey, and that's helped me understand and appreciate to be within this space. And it sounds a bit maybe mad, but I'm absolutely grateful to parts of my menopause for giving me those kind of my voice back. I always had it,
Yes.
but it was lost, and it's kind of giving me that inner strength again.
Yeah.
And it's time to really just get to know you, which
Yeah.
is really important. And I think I did that through my counseling journey. I kind of, once and all I learnt about myself, and then it was kind of like, as you're always developing through different phases, but it's literally like getting to know you again and what you willing to put up with, the people that you no longer want in your life that don't bring you that energy and that vibe, and you go into a whole new layer, I think, and it's quite
Yes.
exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's so good you mentioned that because it does get a negative rap for lots of reasons, and I completely understand it. And it is a really difficult time, and I know that. But equally, there are so many positives. I have, like you, I never felt more connected to my body. I'm more in tune with myself. I am now doing things that make me happy and less about people pleasing. And it's all that whole transition of life because our hormones have changed. It does bring a new sense of freedom, doesn't it?
really does. I say that all the time, and it's I think people around you sometimes will be like, "Gosh," but sometimes having that little bit of that language, that sentence, we say yes to a lot, and it's just like, "Thank you very much for the invite, but I'm really not feeling up to it right now." And it's being okay with those things and knowing what your body can do at certain times, and think people respect you for that more, the more honest you are. Because how many things have we gone to and really dreaded and got there and just thought, "Oh, I just wanna be at home in my PJs." And it's so important that we, at this time, we lean into that. And I always say kind of, "Woohoo, I don't have periods anymore,
Yeah.
and in summer I can wear white jeans and not
Yes.
panic." There's
Yeah.
some small things that you look back on and think, "Okay," as much as I kind of know that, a bleed is good for us, and I kinda tell my girls that now, it's good, it happens, it's a natural phase that our body does, but it's kind of like really getting into that, looking at what has changed and how you can really lean into the new phase, and I like to kinda call it now my wise woman years because I really do feel as wise as I've ever been, and I've got a lot of friends who are in the 50s, and I think 50 is my next kind of where I feel like it feels like people really know themselves at that age, and it's yeah, it's cherishing it, and it's like, wow, yeah, holding on to this wisdom tight
Yeah.
and just, yeah, being you.
And it's really interesting that you mentioned your girls as well. I've got 2 daughters as well and a son, and it's how we pass this message down the line because we are talking to the right women now about it, that are actually going through it, but it's also destigmatizing and kind of getting rid of the myths around the menopause for the younger generation, for the women that are coming up, isn't it? How do we reach them more?
Yeah, well, I feel like I kinda say this a lot. I do feel like I'm really proud of this kind of generation. I feel like sometimes we're oversharers. I tell you, I'm like, "I want to hear that." But which is brilliant because I remember, like, starting my period at school, and it wasn't on the school day, but going in and it was pee and it was all like whisper, whisper behind, like, "Oh god," body shame and like getting changed and hiding. I think now it's like they are just expressive. They're just different and it's brilliant. So I think that it's really important that we are passing on these messages and hopefully for them, this will feel like again, like them's just starting their cycles. It will feel like, "Oh gosh," and then the next thing I'll have children hopefully if they want them, and then I'll have a menopause journey. And it's kind of looking into all these stages and kind of embracing how amazing women's bodies are. So I love it when, like, they all come round and they'll talk to me about the periods and things, and I think, "Gosh, this wouldn't have happened without this maybe," and they'll share, and I think, "This is brilliant," and,
Yeah.
they will ask those questions, they're intrigued and things, even though my girls just every conversation talking, they, like, walk off now and say, "What are you talking," and they just leave me now to it because 'cause I'm probably talking about it most times of the day, but they've got used to that, and I think, "Well, one day you'll thank me because I am doing it
Yes.
for you and your
Yeah.
generations to really, like," we want them to thrive, not just survive this phase, and I do feel that they will be. Um, I think these generations now that are doing this and this work, I feel like we will make the impact for the future, and that's what's really enlightening and really powerful, yeah.
Yeah, and I know now that you do lots of work with corporates, don't you? When you go into workplaces and you're educating people, have you found a shift there that it's not just because obviously it's not just a women's issue; it affects everybody. It affects our relationships with our colleagues, our work colleagues, our partners,
Yeah,
everybody. So it's about educating the whole kind of society, isn't it?
it really is, and I think it's kind of like you say, it's been from generations back where, we don't talk about things and we get on and we strong mentality, but things have changed and we want to feel as strong as men. We can do as much as men. And it's really important that, I always say when I go into a workplace, it's top to bottom, bottom to top. It's if you can look after your workforce and let them feel heard and understand and work together, that not every day is going to be the same at this, and having some, implementations, but it's all right having, say, a policy and just a piece of paper. It's actually the infrastructure around that and really making sure that it's not just a piece of paper and you are implementing those, things to work together in your teams and having, like I would say, menopause champion or somebody. And it's brilliant to hear like women in the workplace is setting up their own groups and they're supporting each other there. And that just gives me so much joy. And they're really strongly passionate about it. Um, and I always say my biggest win is when I do get the men come in the room and they'll say to me and I'll say, "Oh, are any men joining?" Or when they sent things through and they're like, "Oh, they said," CEO is too busy, and then suddenly they'll creep in and I think, "Yes, we've done this." And they're usually the ones that are hanging around at the end to kind of chat to me about their partners and say, "Gosh, I didn't realize," and I need to be a bit more understanding, and they're the wins that you get. And it is a
Yes.
twofold because it's the relationship that changes within you. But I think for everybody else, if we can all understand it together, getting a book and reading it together and learning something about it, then it will make it easier. And I don't often feel sorry for men, but there's a part of me where I'm kind of like, how can you understand it? Your anatomy is so different, but let's work together on this and it make your life easier and ours. And, this joint connection of kind of just having a language or a phrase that I don't understand you, but I'm trying my best, or
Yes.
is there anything I can do to help? Can really go a long way
Yeah.
rather than just calling us, names that we don't want to hear and that we're going mad. It's just not helpful. Yeah.
No, yeah, I could really relate to that. I had a really bad, right at the beginning, I had a really bad instance where the kids were all at home and something really small had sparked me off. And I remember just standing in the kitchen and screaming at them and telling them all to F off, locked myself in the bathroom and I was crying my eyes out. Nobody would talk to me. And then about 2 weeks later, I walked into my husband who working from home and he was on a work menopause
Yes.
a mentoring session. I was like, "Yes, thank God for that." He's not just he's listening to
Brilliant.
somebody. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
important.
It really is important. I remember doing my coaching and Gary would be sat at the end of the table and he'd hear it and he'd go, "Oh, you're not doing that again." But deep down, I kind of knew he was listening in and I thought, "You're probably not thinking it, but at least you're kind of learning something." And he was
Yeah.
hearing others and I thought, well, that's important. Um, and it goes a long, long way, doesn't it, to help us and to feel better. Definitely.
I mean, you created a bit of a toolkit for yourself, didn't you, to kind of get yourself through this? So women that are struggling, is there a few things that you can recommend to them that they can kind of start just to make small it's not about making massive changes overnight, is it? It's about really just changing daily little
It
things every
really is.
day.
And I think within this space, I think as we all know, these platforms are amazing, but it's very overwhelming.
Mm,
It's very there's so much comparison these days of what we should be doing, and even me, I'm just like, "Oh, I have to come away from it." It can be a lot, and I think that's what's really kind of it's great, but it's just like stick to what you can do. Any small changes and just it's your life, it's your way. You can't incorporate what someone else is because you don't even know what's going on for them. So I think for me, it was really looking at the bigger picture. We always say like menopause is so many pillars, but it's, looking at your sleep. Are you creating for me, kind of creating this sleep, like I suppose environment, making that environment bedtime really feel like it's bedtime. And it can't always happen. I get people who've got children and they're out late at nights. That was me, till 9 o'clock. But when you can, just really letting your body adjust and feel like it's going to bed, putting your phone on do not disturb, that's really helped me just to think,
yeah.
I can't contact anyone, get through now, apart from the numbers that I need, like parents, if, but really having that, right, I'm not contactable. Um, I think really importantly, looking at your diet, great to say, but are we having, 30 grams of protein, each meal and things like that? And some days, no, I'm really not. But looking at it in a week and just thinking at the end of the week, enough protein this week, rather than beating yourself up and how can I better next week? And we haven't all got time to be prepping and taking everything with us. And workplaces, canteens might not be, great for that, or you're popping out to the shop. So when you can, prepping something that you're thinking, "I'm having at least one good, meal within that," but really trying your best to look at, what your intake is, and I think fibers, we've talked about enough, as a woman that we need it. And then also, I think movement, and again, we should be doing 10,000 steps a day. Really, if we're getting a few thousand, 3,000, 4,000. How good is that when you look back on your day and you look down? I don't track anything, but I think we've become that way. But just knowing that you've done it or you've got outside for 10, 20 minutes, how good is that getting out in nature and just changing your mindset? And I feel like sometimes not always plugging and, podcasting, just being and listening to the birds is
Yes.
brings me so much at peace and looking around you because I said, double chins are on a comeback, we're all looking down. Like, let's start looking up again and,
Yeah.
noticing things. I watched a bird the other day with a twig in its mouth, and I thought, "I don't remember the last time I've seen that," and I was fascinated where it went to put the making its nest, and it's
Yeah.
so special, and I think we miss the small things. So movement is key for me. I never felt as strong as I am now really, and that was something that looking at changing, I adapted my regime. I was a quick 20, 30 minute sweat it out and all was good. Part was, I needed to lie down for half an hour when I'd finished, but my body was saying, no, 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 I can't do that anymore. So for me, it's reformer Pilates, and I really enjoy that. It's my happy place, as I call it, being on that bed because I feel like it's so much to think about not falling off a bed that, I'm in the zone. I really am in
Yes.
the moment. So it's
Yeah.
adapting again, something that you enjoy rather than just thinking, oh, you got to do that. I think balance isn't talked about enough. Just sometimes when you're in the kitchen doing silly little things, but they're not silly, but standing on one leg and just really getting, it does change. And I think for me, having this, I could get osteoporosis earlier. So really important that I look after my bone strength, and that's where I'm kind of at for me. Um, but I think it's community is a biggie, and I think that's what's really important. We're social beings. We need connection. We need touch. We've lost that with lockdown, and I think it was brilliant at the start, but I still find that we've gone back a little bit of a
Yes.
step back, and
Yeah.
we need to be touched by people. Just being yourself and just giving yourself some of those comforting words. Because I know my self-talk sometimes can go crazy, and I think, "That's so bad, I wouldn't do that to a friend."
Yeah.
Love yourself and be your own best friend, within anything. Really, as these things happen, I do think we've got to, be grateful for the small things, and it's not just about, going buying something that we feel like it's all
Yeah.
within us, and just stopping sometimes and pausing and not feeling guilty for having that drink and really enjoying it and reading that chapter of a book. So bringing in new hobbies is really important.
It's that
And I
guilt
think,
word though.
yeah,
It's
the
that
word
guilt
guilt,
women. It is women
it's there as
particularly.
women, we feel so
Yeah.
guilty. And
Yeah.
again, not calling men, but they've got it all worked out. They literally have the focus, they get it done, wham, bam, bam. That's what they're doing. And kind of it feels like they don't let anything slip. It's all been done in a day. I know particularly for my husband that is, and I think, wow, I'm envious of that some days, but we don't prioritize ourselves enough. And,
No.
it is a time to think, okay, you know, what else can I bring in next week? And it's just not doing it all at once because that is so overwhelming, trying
Yes.
to
Yeah.
change everything.
Yeah.
So
And then
I
you
think
give up.
you do. You
Yeah.
start something, don't you? And you've not
Yeah.
been consistent. Um, and another little game changer for me with the sleep was just my one kind of non-negotiable is my magnesium glycinate before bed. That's really helped me to kind of wind down if there was a supplement that I was to say. But again, it's a minefield, and it's
Yeah.
understanding it and like really doing your research and finding out and looking at ingredients and what you are taking in. Because you can spend fortunes, can't you?
Yeah,
You
you
really
can.
can.
Yeah, yeah. And we are being targeted. It does feel a little bit like, the menopause has become a hot brand for some companies that are just throwing everything out at us. So it's very hard. You do have to do your own research to find out what's going to be right for you, don't you?
You do, you really do, and I think lean into the things that feel right and the safety that that brings in kind of like you say, if you're on platforms, just leaning into those people who you feel because it can feel like, "Oh my gosh," like, you look at your day and think, I've done
Yeah,
this," and like, "Shouldn't I be doing it?" And it's like, "No." Like,
yeah,
what can I do for me? And just be really present in what you can do for you, because I don't really like saying stay in your lane, but sometimes it just comes to mind, but it really is about
yes.
you staying on your track and just keep going and don't, divert and switch off. Just do and bring in what you can
And
and when you can.
it sounds like you've really found your sense of purpose with this as well. You seem to have this new sense of purpose that's really driving you forward with what you've built.
I think it is, and I think because I feel so passionate too, I do think my life purpose is I call myself a piece of conduit these days. I kind of like connecting people, and I really
Mm,
feel like I connect the right people, and I do think that is a gift. I don't think you can learn that. I'm
yeah.
a real people's person, and I love chatting to people. So I think that connection and your network and your community, or whatever you want to call it, it does change, and you kind of attract yeah,
Yeah,
tribes, and
yeah,
your vibe attracts your tribe, and it really is important that, things where you might not connect with anybody anymore just because you feel like you've known them for years, it doesn't mean it's just, this transition can bring up so much. So I think it really is leaning into those people that bring you the vibes that you want and the
yeah.
energy that you need. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Honestly, I love the work that you're doing, and I can see it, and I can see how much you're helping other people. So thank you so much for doing all that
Thank
you're
you.
doing, and keep doing it and keep banging that drum because we definitely need it. You're such a champion for women. My last two questions, Emma, that I ask all my
Yes.
guests: if you were to pay yourself a compliment, what would it be?
Think I love saying, I am enough. And I think that is something that has come with time, and I never thought I'd say that. And I'm exactly where I'm meant to be right now. Is kind of like feeling very much, yeah, presenting itself a lot on the daily basis. So I think that is important, um, to just sometimes look back and reflect. It's important, and it brings up those feelings of, you know, it's a journey, and, nothing's linear, and there's sometimes no end game to things, but really, like, yeah, I think really just tune into you and be proud of everything that you go through and come through and see
Yeah,
light in things. Yeah.
amazing. And my last question: what does free
Yes.
to be mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's not second guessing who I am, to fit in with what other people expect. I think I've lived through my life in kind of lots of fear of judgment over the years, and I've kind of really struggled with that. But now I'm a bit like, feel the fear, do it anyway. I'm not for everybody, and everybody's not for me. I like saying that, and that is
Yes,
really important. Not everyone's going to like me. There's 100 people. If there was one person, I used to hone in on if that one
yeah,
person,
yeah,
and
me
it's
too.
just like it's
Yeah,
really important that I think showing up for me, because this is me at the
yeah,
end of the day. Yeah, and that's
and
why I
you
love
are
having my
fabulous.
name. Thank
Thank you
you. So are
so
you.
much, Emma.
Thank
Thank you
you for
so
sharing
much.
everything you do.
Thank you. So if people want to check you out on social media, how do they find out about you?
Yeah, so it's Emma Neville. This is me. On Instagram, and I've been quite a few months now on LinkedIn. Um, the same, and it's kind of like I really am enjoying that platform. Yeah, it
Yes,
feels
I
very
am.
grown up.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
feels
You
like I
get,
really like it. Yeah.
yeah. Brilliant.
So they're the
Thank
two platforms I feel safe on.
Amazing. I'll put the links on the show notes, but thank you so much for your time today. And I hope we meet again in person this year at some point. And
Definitely.
yeah, absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
You too. Look after yourself.
Take
Enjoy the
care.
day.
And you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Well, once again, another guest that has left us with so much information and lots to think about. And I really love the way that Emma has used her lived experiences, like I said at the beginning, to help others and to find out as much information as she could about the menopause so that she could understand her body, so that we can all really learn to connect with our bodies through this stage of life. So lots to think about. And there's lots of great ways to create that toolkit for yourself to find out what works for you to be the best version of yourself through this time. So lots of really great things to think about with this conversation. So I really enjoyed talking to Emma. And if you are struggling right now, do not be alone. Go and join the This Is Me community, because not only will you get more information, but also you will meet a really supportive community of women that understand what you're going through, because sometimes it is difficult to talk to the ones closest to us, to our friends and family. But sometimes talking to a friendly stranger that knows exactly what you're going through, that you can relate to, makes a big difference. You are not alone in this. So go and seek help. And, This Is Me is a great place to start. So, what I really loved, and I would like to leave you with this week, is Emma's notes on how to be your own best friend. We all need that reminder. We all need to be that much kinder to ourselves and talk to ourselves the way we would talk to our best friends. So let's start reminding ourselves that we are our own best friend, because that's a great place to start the week. I'll be back next week following on with this conversation. We will be talking more menopause to end the series. But in the meantime, keep being fabulous. Thank you so much for listening to Liberty Free to Be, and I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. If it spoke to you, please don't forget to follow, leave a review, and share with somebody who might need a reminder that they are free to be themselves. You can find me on Instagram at RachelPeru1, and don't forget to follow our growing swimwear brand community over at Liberty Free to Be. If you'd like even more connection and conversation, come and join our free Facebook group, the Liberty Lifestyle Hub, where over 300 women are cheering each other on every single day. Until next time, keep being fabulous.